I think even for publishing houses now, I think there are just so many things that are just done to death, and I like hate to read about them. Like I will just probably just scroll through. If anybody says this is a project inspired by Wabi Sabi, or this is some Japanese philosophy that somebody's followed, and this is a minimalist project, and there's a certain sense of restraint here because you wanted to have like a really like clean, clutter-free house. I mean, what are these even concepts? Like, how can you even design a house to say, I'm going to make a wabi-sabi home? Like, what the fuck is...
Okay, I had pressed record. Let's see.
It's going to be a bit of a controversial story, but that's fine. I was going to take up forensic science because I was very sort of enamored by like cutting up bodies and fine, I'll just take up architecture and we'll see. Yeah, it's like, it's basically, it's just drawing, right? Yeah, you can cut all of this out.
Of course. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my astrology on my podcast. We should stop at that before both of us go on a rant about architecture influences.
I am very unfiltered, I don't care.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Hi, Jay.
Hello.
So today's banana verdict is about architecture and burnout. Do you think architecture glorifies burnout?
I'm burnt out right now myself. But yes, it does glorify burnout in the sense that like you always expect the architect, at least I think the performance that the architect needs to put up is that they're constantly working, that they're in control of everything, that they're taking care of their team, contractor, labor, material, what they're supposed to make. They're not allowed to make a single mistake, they're not allowed to have a misjudgment, and that they're supposed to be omnipresent for any mishap that sort of happens on site. Let me tell you, none of the architecture problems, when at least you're running a site, are a matter of life and death. But for the person that you're making it for, it clearly is, because of which they expect you to be there all the time. So I think that definitely is a sense of glorification of burnout, because you're constantly supposed to pretend like you
have it.
Yeah, like you have everything in control.
Yeah.
And I think that pretense is celebrated, which to my mind is not the best thing.
Yeah, it isn't, because you know, you sort of have this opinion in your mind that okay, if this person is overworking, then they probably are successful architects.
Correct.
But if you have a good work-life balance, it'd be like, but are you sure? Like, are you really good at what you do?
Yeah.
But do you think this is an issue that starts in architecture school? Because, you know, like, I remember as students, we'd have like so many redos on our sheets, you know, like we're working way into the night, and we'd then discuss, oh, I only got like 2 hours of sleep last night because I was working on this. So you think that's where it stems from, right? Because you're so used to that.
I mean, I would say yes and no, both, because I know for a fact that a lot of my own classmates sort of wore this badge of victory, saying, oh, we didn't sleep through the night at all, and we've produced this kind of work. But for anyone that knows me well, I don't think in the 5 years I've pulled a single night. I mean, I was always sort of ready with whatever that I needed to kind of show in class the next day. I didn't have any redos and things like that. And I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that at the end of the day, it's about time management, right? So yes, it does stem from that, because like even when professors used to teach us, the whole like thing used to be like, oh, this is a submission date, and I don't care if you're dying, but you have to submit your sheet and die, sort of thing. And I think it does come from there. Like you're not supposed to have like anything else in your life as a purpose than to kind of like constantly like work and study architecture. But I think the more that I've become a practicing architect now, I feel like architecture is a way of life and it has to be dealt with like that. So I think that's what they meant when they told us that you have to kind of like think, breathe, eat, shit, architecture all the time. But I think, yes, diligence is something that you definitely require. But that diligence doesn't have to come with not sleeping nights. It just has to come with like when you're supposed to sit and work, you're supposed to sit and work. And you finish that and then you move on to something else.
Let's circle back to the beginning. Because guys, this is Jay Shah and he runs a practice called Draw. And that's in Mumbai, and he has projects in and around, but he also has projects in Assam. So it's a 2-year-old practice?
Yes, almost a 2-year-old practice.
Before we get into Draw, I'd like to ask you, how did architecture happen? Was it always the plan, or like...
It actually never was the plan. It's a little bit of a funny story because I went into, after like 10th, which is basically high school, I went into like doing my junior college, thinking that I was going to take up forensic science because I was very sort of enamored by like cutting up bodies and like finding out what's inside and things like that. And then right before joining junior college, I think my parents took me to a career counselor because like all varied parents in the country, they thought it might be nice to kind of seek advice on what options are available and what my aptitude was like. And that consultant basically told my parents that he's very creative from the aptitude test at least. And then she sat me down and I very clearly remember these sentences that she told me. She said, you're super creative, you like art, craft, whatever, because I was generally like good at it and I kind of liked and enjoyed that. She said, you're not going to cut up human bodies in creative ways every now and then to kind of find out something new, right? And I was like, yeah, not. And she was like, I don't think this is the right field for you. Why don't you consider some other options? And she said you can become a graphic designer. She said you can go into fashion. She said you can also become an architect. And somehow there always has been this sort of connect with looking at architecture and enjoying architecture and looking at space and enjoying space, which was innate because I think as a family we really enjoyed traveling. We enjoyed going to like old structures and kind of spending time there and things like that. So I think then when she kind of steered me into that direction, I think somehow it just kind of resurfaced and I said, okay, why not like, try this out and then we'll see what happens, because I didn't think it was a very serious profession when I was getting into it, because I was like, fine, I'll just take up architecture and we'll see. Yeah, it's basically, it's just drawing, right? And I was like, okay, I'll take it up and I'll see where it takes me. And I think also because there's also a general like glorification of like, oh, this is an architect, and like also because we know of like some very, very big names who had like great lives when it comes to architecture. I was like, okay, fine, I'll be famous. I'll take up architecture and this is what I'll do. And I think walked into architecture thinking like that, walked out thinking completely opposite. But yeah, I think that's how architecture really happened. It wasn't something that was planned at all.
Yeah, interesting. I was about to become a lawyer. And then...
Yeah, I think all architects never thought that
I never thought that architecture was... unless their parents were architects, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really glad architecture happened for me. And...
so am I.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to change it, even though there are times when I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? There are days when I'm, just sitting at my desk and I'm looking at my laptop and I have like 1,000 tabs open.
Yeah.
Not just Safari, like AutoCAD is open, SketchUp is open, and then of course Photoshop and Lightroom is also open. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? But then after I calm down, I'm like, but I wouldn't want to do it any different.
Yeah. No, the same thing happens with me. Every day, I think in the evening, I sit back and be like, but one more day of doing this tomorrow if I wake up and I'd have to kind of do this. And then when I go back home and I'm a lot more kind of like calm after the whole day storm and everything that the practice sort of like asks of you, I'm like, but I don't think I want to do anything else. I do want to wake up tomorrow and come back to my studio and kind of design what I am and kind of take something forward. And I think for me, it's a very childlike fascination. Like when I see something that's being thought of and drawn in the studio and that being converted to something that actually takes physical form on site, I think it really does put a smile on my face. And I think that's what I live for. So I don't think I would take on I would take on anything else but architecture, given a choice as a profession. So I think
you're good.
I'm good. I'm good.
How do you like teaching?
I really enjoy it actually. I think it's a good break from practice.
It's nice to get into the college because I think you just get that space to go back to.
And I also feel like because practice is always sort of driven by the client and like their whim, fancy, requirement, program, whatever, I think it's nice to go back to academia where you can actually kind of make a lot of these decisions yourself. Like they're very context driven. They're very like, when you come across people, you know that this is what they need sort of thing. And there's nobody kind of constantly telling you saying, but that's better, not this, that's what I want and not that. So I think that's...
And also I think not just the creative process, but even you get to explore a lot more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's also nice to also have like, because I'm doing the first year also, the kids actually have no preconceived notions of what it is like. So sometimes they also end up getting things on board which like completely blow your mind, and you're like, how did he even think about this, and why did this thought not come to me? But I think it's just refreshing to also be there and witness that this is being spoken of or this is being discussed. And I think that's really nice, because sometimes with practice you have a certain way of working and you've set it, and then it's very difficult to kind of take another path to kind of break that set format of the way of working. And then suddenly this one kid will come and say, "Par mere ko to pata hai, I think this is what this project needs," and you're like, he's right, but I didn't think of it. So I think that's very, very refreshing and nice.
So how much of that do you take back to your practice?
A lot of it, actually. I mean, like I said, basically once you've set the practice, you have a certain way of working and you kind of want to propagate that as your process. But it's good to have like these things that kind of shake you up a little bit, and then you're like, okay, fine, this could also be a way of working, right? Charcoal drawings could also be a part of your practice. It doesn't have to be something that's just the formative exercise for an architect. You can actually even imbibe that as a process within your studio. So like we take back some of these methodologies, take back some of these thoughts. So I think it's nice.
But teaching first years must be really, really difficult.
It is very difficult and daunting also. I'd say it's a lot easier actually to teach design to like second, third, fourth, fifth year, because by then you also start to understand what architecture is all about. In the first year, these guys come from like say junior colleges where they've not been like, where everything is instructive teaching. They've not been like left to think for themselves of what meaning they make of the world, how they observe things, how they see things. So a lot of like the first year teaching goes into like making them unlearn that and actually just getting them to observe the world a different way. So we don't necessarily like push them to say, okay, you have to design a certain way, or this is how design's done, or even methods of like designing. Yes, we set a process to say, you know, design is not a linear process. You have to seek inspiration from many things. You have to try out many things. You have to try out material. Sometimes you have to try out form. And I also believe that architecture has a lot to do with the person's personality also, because architecture has a lot of like personal opinions, biases, takes on world that you then kind of put into designing the architecture that you are.
And that's a lot of responsibility also at the same time.
Yes. So I think that's also what I find very exciting about teaching first year, because it's very interesting to see a certain perception of program also completely change with the kid imagining that program a certain way, and you're like, okay, fine, this is like a completely new way of looking at this program. And it's a fun thing. Like, it's okay to let them explore it that way. It's okay to let them say, okay, I want to build a Qawwali space, but the Qawwali space doesn't need to be like an amphitheater. I can actually make the whole damn thing sunken and have like the land go on top of it, and then have like apertures that allow for a certain amount of light through, and that just becomes my subliminal experience of Qawwali, because Qawwali at some point also attaches you to the larger sort of idea of like a being, or like a god, or this like kind of force, right?
So now we come to the most interesting 7 years of your life.
Interesting, very much.
Yeah. Okay, so you worked with Samira Rathod for 7 years. How was that? Because I can't think of working with Bijoy for 7 years, for sure, because that would have driven me crazy. And I'm guessing the stress levels are similar.
Yeah.
And how did you deal with that for 7 years?
It actually was one of the most exciting times for me, which is why I kind of continued. And like everything else that has happened by chance so far, the reason that I also joined Samira's office is because, one, she taught me in my last year in school, so she obviously knew of me and I knew of her. But she was recommended my name for a very short research project that she wanted to do over like the summer break, and I was just done with thesis. And I just joined her thinking I'll make some like summer internship money and kind of go and party with my friends after. And honestly don't think I realized how those 2 months became 7 years, because for me it was honestly a breeze. I mean, a lot of people will have raised eyebrows when I say this, but I don't think for me it ever was a job. I think it was something which had become so integral to who I was and the way that I was forming my opinions around how one perceives architecture, designs architecture, experiences architecture. And I owe all of this to obviously Samira, who's been a great mentor to me, in very honestly teaching me so much more about architecture than college
what you
ever
would have
did.
thought of
College,
initially,
college ever did. And I think what came one after the other were opportunities of all different kinds that really kept me on my toes to really enjoy my time there. So yes, there was a certain attitude of like, oh, I have to have things done a certain way, I have to have them done in a certain time, they have to be done in a certain format which will go to the clients, all of which was tedious, of course, and it is generally in most offices that are very serious of their work. But what also came with that was a general like sense of amusement and excitement in every little thing that we were doing. And I also owe that to the partnership that I think she and I developed with time, where I started to understand the ways to work around the way that she kind of like functioned. And I think that really helped me sort of dodge a lot of the cantankerous mood swings that a lot of people sort of talk about, and that they're there.
Yeah.
And I think she owns it up herself too, because she knows it and she's very aware of the fact that she is a certain kind of a person. But at the end of the day, it is also a choice that you make for yourself, right?
I agree.
And it is also something that you decide a threshold for, saying this is how much I can take and this is how much I can't. And beyond that, I think it's unfair to constantly blame the other person, saying, but they were like that and all of that. So yeah, but
So
whatever I am today, I think.
Accept it or not, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever I am today or how I think about architecture, a lot of that has to be owed to how she kind of taught me and taught the whole team that was there around that time.
I think for me, when I was with Bijoy, I started as an intern. So I only did my internship there, but
Right.
I continued for a couple of months after. And it was really stressful, really stressful. And I think for me, a lot of my learning did come from there, and I had to grow a lot in a very short space of time. And I think that was very uncomfortable because you were trying to match learning that was, I think, at least 3-4 years worth of it in, like, you're trying to skim it down to 6 months, and you have to be on your toes all the time. I think it was very stressful for me, and that sort of did continue when I joined Anand, and that was easier for me to take.
Right.
Like, I worked with him for 4-5 years, and it was just a lot smoother.
Correct.
An experience. But I get what you're saying, and I feel like it's the ideas that you go for.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fascination with what you can learn from them that makes you stay there.
Correct. Yeah, I think it was that. Also the fact that a lot of times, because I had stepped up and kind of like taken care of so much work within the office, that there was a certain reliance also on you, right? And then when the other person is reliant on you for certain things, also the power dynamic starts to shift. Then it's not like every order is trickling down for you to follow, but you're also becoming somebody who's assisting them in taking that decision in how the studio will move forward.
Yeah.
So having started as somebody who's a research associate for 2 months to actually becoming the junior architect, then the senior architect, and eventually the associate, I think a lot of times because of the shift in the roles, the power dynamic also between Samira and I changed. And a lot of people didn't understand it, but it was something that, I mean, I was obviously kind of a part of physically and in person, that It's difficult to explain this to somebody who's had a very different experience than I have.
Yeah, for sure.
So it might sound like I'm taking up for her, but it's actually just not that. It's how I have dealt with her practice and the work that I was doing there as somebody who was also in a position of power with her. That made me stick around for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like we parted ways at the most amazing terms. We don't talk anymore. And it's okay because it's a relationship that I hold very dearly to my heart. I don't think it's something that I'm ever going to forget, because that is the formative years of me being an architect that has really shaped me into how I want to conduct my own practice. I keep telling people that what I learned from her is also how to not conduct a practice sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a huge learning, and that I don't think you can have that sort of learning till you don't stick around at a place for a much longer time, because it's not just the highs that you learn from, it's also the lows that you learn from. And I think in the 7 years, I'm sure we've seen like both. I think what generally tends to also happen with a lot of people is that you start putting people on a pedestal, because you know that there are certain kind of like, there's a certain image around them as being very famous in terms of an architect or being a certain way and, you know, doing amazing work, that you start putting them on a pedestal, and then everything that you never imagined that person to have, because at the end of the day they're a human, right? They're a person.
Yeah.
You start to get disappointed. And I think somehow, I don't know how, but somehow in the 7 years that I've been there, because of the kind of relationship that Samira and I shared, I never ended up putting her on a pedestal to say I have to look up to everything she does, because I was also given the liberty to sometimes walk into her cabin and tell her saying, but I don't think this is right. You know, you are wrong here, and how about we kind of have a discussion about this and see if we can change it. That because of that, putting her on a pedestal never happened. I was never disappointed either. I was like, okay, you know, I know that at the end of the day, she's a person. Yeah, she can make mistakes, and it's fine to do that. I also do that, and I probably will for how many ever years that I live. So it's okay, man. Let her make the mistake and learn from it, or let her own up to her mistake and be like, okay, yeah, I was wrong here, and this is how I would like to change it. Or I know I was wrong here, but I don't want to change it. Like, fuck the world. It's fine. I mean, like, that's her decision to take. So I think because of that, a lot of like, the learnings were very objective. They were not about like, I'm emotionally affected by the way that she spoke to me, and then, hence I can't like be here anymore.
Well, that's a very healthy attitude to have.
Yeah, I was like, okay, fine. She spoke to me a certain way. I didn't like it. Let me go and tell her that. And if she doesn't take it well, that's her problem, not mine. And I think it's that really like kind of made it very, very easy for me to just be around, because I made that environment
work for you.
Work for me. And I was like, okay, fine, I can be here for longer. And I think one of the reasons that I also kind of left was because that exact relationship that I'm talking about right now started to kind of shift. And that made me uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, fine. Now is a point that I cannot take this. And it's best to kind of move on. So it was just that.
So how did Draw happen?
Draw actually happened out of anxiety because after having worked and worked and worked for 7 years, I think when I kind of got out of Samira's office, it just disoriented me to a position in life where I just didn't know what I was going to do. And that desperation of like wanting to do something and not sitting at home idle, I think gave birth to Draw. But I think deep down I always knew that I wanted to have my own practice, whether it was now or probably later. And it wasn't something that was formed at the point, because I had started to kind of freelance and do projects on my own. And I think when work increased a little bit and I kind of thought that this was a bit much for me to take alone and that I needed to start kind of getting people on board as a team, is when I thought of kind of then making it into an official setup, which we named Draw eventually, which is called Design, which is for Design Research and Workshop.
So what kind of projects are you into, or maybe I know you're working on a lot of different things, but what kind of projects intrigue you the most?
I think there's not a certain type of project that intrigues us. I think any project that allows us a certain inquiry or lets us kind of question what we've always perceived or know of, I think really excites us. So it could be something as small as building a table to something as large as doing a huge apartment or a home somewhere in the country. I think any project that lets us have any sort of inquiry, whether it is questioning the typology of what the project comes as in terms of program, and then kind of questioning that and really working things out within the layout to kind of make that into something that also makes the user question it, or whether it is a material inquiry in certain cases of projects, whether it is a question on what people consider luxury and how some very humble materials can also make a space feel luxurious, or it is just like form making and questioning the context that you're building in with the form that you're kind of like also conceiving for the piece of architecture. Or sometimes it is also making your patron kind of question of what they came with as a brief and how you're very slowly sort of with nuances shifting that brief into something that they never imagined that they could have, because at the end of the day you're trained to do that, right? So any project that has an inquiry of this kind is something that really excites us at the office, and it's not just me, it's also the team, and I think they find a lot more joy than I do in this kind of inquiry to say, okay, how can we question what we already know of and then kind of change that. That is the project that we take on. So we're doing a lot of architecture, interiors, we're also in some sense doing a little bit of landscape, we're doing products, we're doing publications, we're doing also in some sense helping people with styling, people with production design for like movies and things like that. So so I think right now, I think for in the formative years of Draw, I think it's really for us to kind of explore the gamut of what is available. Perhaps it'll continue like this, perhaps not, I don't know. We might kind of narrow it down, become a more niche practice. I don't know. I don't know what the trajectory of Draw is going to be. But I think at this point, it's too early to tell, and I probably don't even want to define myself like that. I just want to kind of have fun with what we do. And I think the team also now is like that, where they say yes to like anything that really excites us as an office. So we take it on. I mean, like we have a workshop where we'll sit and probably experiment with also handles that you kind of hold, which is probably the most micro experience that an architect is probably ever going to do. And I think a lot of like times generally architects don't even get into that because they're like, okay, we just go to a hardware store and buy a knob that's looking nice. How does it matter? But to hold a metal knob and to hold a wooden knob are two very, very different experiences. So for us, that inquiry is also something that excites us. So why not take that on? So it's something that micro to something that like something macro, which is probably questioning the city or like the infrastructure in the city. I'm really hoping that we get some sort of institutional work to really now kind of also push that boundary and envelope of ours. But so far we've been doing residential, commercial, retail, we're doing architecture and interiors in all of these, hospitality. So yeah, I think really having fun.
Favorite project so far?
I don't. I think there's a phase of every project that ends up becoming something that I enjoy more than the other. So I think I can't put a finger and say this is my favorite project at this point. But yeah, some projects are just enjoyable when you're designing it. Some projects are very enjoyable when you're executing it. Some projects are just enjoyable when you're done with the project and you're finished.
You don't have to deal with those clients anymore.
Exactly. But yeah, so it's not a matter of a favorite project, but we're just having fun with whatever that we are right now.
Okay. I mean, I've shot some of your stuff and I really like it. And
thank you.
I think I'd really like to see you experiment a lot more so that I can shoot nicer, more experimental spaces.
We're loyalists, Neelanjana. We're not going to anybody else.
So now is our banana scale segment. So this is where you rate it, either 1 banana or 5 bananas.
This is fun.
So the idea behind it is that there'd be a few common questions that I ask everybody, and then I get an average as a thing running. Okay, so architecture education in India.
1 banana.
Wow. Considering you're a teacher right now.
Which is why I probably know a little bit about it.
Yeah. Working in architecture as a career.
3 banana. I love it. Might not be for everyone.
Yeah, fair. Work-life balance as an architect.
1 banana. Not to glorify it, but it does end up becoming that sometimes.
AI in architecture.
4 banana. I think it has a lot of potential. We just need to get to understand it better as an animal and then kind of learn how to use it.
Okay, fair. Design magazines.
People will hate me for this. 2 banana. I'm just going to be a little safe here.
Is that safe? Is
I
too
didn't
safe?
say 1. But yeah, I also feel like now it's just become very easy for people to start their own magazine. In the sense that the credibility that a lot of like very exclusive magazines held, which actually put out good content for people to see and had good discourses about architecture, I think now has just diluted down to everybody being published, to every project being put on a pedestal, to every project getting visibility, because of which the discourse has completely diluted down to just becoming pretty images. So I think all the publication homes are becoming secondary Pinterests.
Also, that's how people are designing these days.
Yeah. I know so many offices of people that I also know myself that basically just sit and design through Pinterest. Like, I don't understand how you can design with a reference already in mind, because then what are you doing? Like, you're basically just appropriating a reference to make it contextual.
Work in your space,
But what exactly are you doing? Where is your sort of visceral idea, or to say, okay, this is something that I feel for the project, so let me first like try that out, and then I will support that with references for a lay person to understand it. You can't flip the process over on its head to say, I will refer to something and take it directly to the client and say, this is what we want to do.
Architecture influencers.
1 banana.
You know, you can even say 0. That's not an issue.
Minus banana.
So I think that we should stop at that before both of us go on a rant about architecture influences. So thank you so much for taking out the time. Yeah.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I made you travel all the way from Grant Road to Goregaon.
It's fine. We like to go outstation sometimes.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bro, I was at Design POV. You will not believe this.